Sharon Tong. You're watching In Parliament. Deputy Prime Minister Teo Chee Hean has moved a motion in Parliament to adopt proposals set out by the committee which reviewed political pay. Elaborating on key recommendations, Mr. Teo provided some insights into the profile of the top 1,000 earners which ministerial salaries are proposed to be pegged to. Data from Singapore's Inland Revenue Authority show that they come from leadership or senior positions covering a wide range of businesses and professions. Mr. Teo said pegging political salaries to that of these individuals has reasonable basis, as there's a link to the pay of those with comparable ability and skill sets who might be suitable as political appointment holders. However, Mr. Teo said the key quality for anyone seeking office is first and foremost the motivation to serve the nation and people.
But having a passion for public service is not in itself sufficient to run a country well. We therefore want people not only with a sense of public service, but who also have many other qualities: organizational and leadership capabilities, capacity to handle multiple responsibilities, ability to solve problems and take charge in a crisis, and the ability to hold his own with world leaders and further Singapore's interests. We're not saying that only people who are among the top 1,000 earners would meet all these criteria, or that we will only draw from this pool. Indeed, many top earners have the competencies, but not the sense of public mission.
Explaining the need to have a performance bonus component on top of the national bonus, Mr. Teo said the national bonus reflects national outcomes which the cabinet and political office holders are collectively responsible for. The individual performance bonus, on the other hand, reflects the Prime Minister's assessment of how each member of his team has contributed in a specific area of direct responsibilities. He sought to clarify the range of pay for ministers, which could start from $607,750 a year in basic pay for those at the entry MR4 level.
This lower start point for the MR4 grade allows the Prime Minister more flexibility on where to appoint a new minister. In addition, the Prime Minister could appoint him even below the MR4 grade, that is, as an acting minister, for example, on a senior Minister of State grade, as already is the practice currently. Now, by so doing, the Prime Minister can test and assess a newly appointed minister before deciding whether to give him heavier responsibilities and place him on a higher ministerial salary or grade. This will help address concerns that new ministers who are drawing lower salaries in their previous jobs will see huge salary gains by joining politics.
Mr. Teo also said that what's critical is the emphasis Singaporeans place on having a system that helps bring in a steady stream of the most committed and able people to serve the country. Ultimately, he said technical details are not the most important part. Mr. Teo stressed that if the salary discount was too deep, the talent pool would be drastically reduced. He said the proposed discount of 40% represents the ethos of political service.
I do appreciate that many may still feel that $1.1 million is a very high figure, and it is. But I hope you will also see it from the point of view of a person possessing these qualities and also the passion to serve the country. Now, while he may be prepared to enter politics and serve the people wholeheartedly, each person faces different personal circumstances and considerations at the age of 35 or 40, when he has to decide what to do with the prime years of his life. And for good personal or family reasons, he may decide to postpone that decision and ultimately not take that step. This will make the potential pool from which we can draw smaller. And if we have a very deep salary discount, we may have to choose from a drastically smaller pool. This will weaken the depth and breadth of the leadership and would not be a good outcome for Singapore.
Now, close to 25 members of parliament have indicated their interest to take part in the debate on political salaries over the next few days. Today, 12 MPs spoke on the issue, with many of them expressing concern over the government's ability to attract good talent. MP Arthur Fong said recruiting potential political leaders will be difficult. The recommendations may discourage individuals who are already at the peak of their careers to switch to politics. He pointed out that some may have financial family commitments that were comfortably met by existing remuneration.
I would imagine many will simply say a polite no thank you. They will probably then serve on their own terms and leisure and contribute to the society and not look towards running a country. To be fair to these persons, I don't doubt that they have a willingness to serve, but the practical aspects to make the move can't be mitigated at that point, man. I'm worried about this. This has a tremendous impact on the well-being for Singapore. This is a problem that the government of the day will face, whether PAP or not.
Minister of State Josephine Teo said the government must consider the level of public acceptance in deciding whether to accept the proposal on political salaries. She said the public will make their views known through the polls if they believe the salaries are just a way for political leaders to enrich themselves. Ms. Teo said pay alone will not attract the right people. The important question to ask is what type of political leadership is wanted for Singapore. She then shared her own experience in entering politics.
The toughest question I faced had been from my father. It took me many sleepless nights to find the right answer to whether the sacrifice will be worth it. I decided it would be too painful to carry around the notion of sacrifice. It will cloud my vision and color everything I do. Hence, I made the choice not to frame it as a sacrifice. Instead, I choose to see political service as a privilege, just as it is serving in the labour movement and the public sector, where I was.
And MP Denise Phua says she does not completely agree with the recommendations carried in the report of the Political Salaries Committee, but she added it is a move in the right direction. Among several recommendations she made, Ms. Phua suggested that political pay be pegged to a broader base of income wage earners.
So the selection of the 1,000 top wage earners, albeit more reasonable, is still arbitrary and still smacks of elitism. Because the base is about 0.05% of the workforce, assuming a workforce size of 2 million. The application of the discount, whether the current 1/3 or the proposed 40%, is also arbitrary and often forgotten and unappreciated. I propose that political leaders' pay be pegged to a simple top percentile income bracket, example 10% or 20% of Singaporeans, then discard the discount feature. A quick poll I conducted revealed that many Singaporeans are likely to understand and accept that their political leaders belong to the top 10% to 20% income bracket in our country. The review has deliberately excluded top civil service leaders, specifically the permanent secretaries and others in the elite admin service. I think 300 of them. Due to their critical role, some of the these elite talents are packed on the same salary band with our ministers. So even when the recommendations of the Committee of Political Pay Review are accepted, some civil servants will receive much higher packages than their ministers.
Opposition MP Chen Shou-Mao says political office should be a calling and a privilege, not a burden or a sacrifice. He said while the committee's recommendations were a step in the right direction, he said the Workers' Party had its own proposals on how ministerial salary should be worked out. The opposition party is proposing that MPs receive a monthly allowance of $11,000, the estimated salary of a senior executive in the civil service, and ministers' salary be pegged as multiples of this allowance, 5 times for an entry-level minister and 9 times for the Prime Minister.
We must remember that in our system of government, ministers are first of all MPs elected by the people as their representatives, not selected by the Prime Minister from the private sector into the cabinet, and then also MPs. Parliament is the highest authority in our system of government, and MPs, as elected representatives of the people, should be the starting point for the determination of ministerial salary. The committee's benchmark to the private sector clouds this fact.
The Workers' Party also proposed changes to the bonuses paid to political appointees. Non-constituency MP Gerald Giam said to bring bonuses down to a more acceptable level, the total variable component should not exceed 5 months. And key performance indicators for each minister should be defined at the start of the term of government and be made public.
Since it would be impractical to tie each and every ministry performance indicator to the minister, we could select just the most relevant KPIs affecting the majority of Singaporeans. For example, the Transport Ministry could set KPIs like the frequency of MRT disruptions and commuter satisfaction survey results.
I just wanted to check if the Workers' Party actually made this proposal to the committee back when the consultation was going on.
We did make some of these proposals. We had to read the committee's report first before we could conclusively decide on whether we agree or not with the benchmarks.
Mr. Inderjit Singh says he supports Singapore's clean wage system, saying the principle of paying ministers high salaries is not a flawed one. Criticising a Workers' Party proposal of matching politicians' salaries to counterparts in other nations, Mr. Singh said the countries mentioned by the opposition do not have clean wages for those in office, with numerous perks in place. They include pensions and allowances for items like bicycles and motorcycles.
Under the committee's proposals, the bonus that can be accrued by ministers is up to 13.5 months. Does the member think that a clean wage ought to include such a high amount of bonus?
What is not clean is if the 13.5 was not declared and the formula for determining that is not declared. Now there is a very clear formula on how a minister can achieve a 13 or whatever bonus that he's entitled to based on very clear parameters. And this is, in fact, an excellent way of measuring performance that is very objective.
And during question time, National Development Minister Koh Boon Wan said imposing an income ceiling for resale flats would deprive flat owners of the full market value of their flats. He was answering a question in Parliament on whether the ministry would consider limiting the sale of 3-room or smaller flats to lower-income Singaporeans. MP Zaki Mohammed noted that the cash over valuation for 3-room flats is much higher than that of 4- and 5-room flats in recent years. He added that the huge COV is a barrier for those who need to downgrade from a bigger flat.
Our priority is to help Singaporean families own their first flat. But here, the member obviously is talking about a second-timer, somebody who have bought in and then sold the flat for whatever reason, and then try to come back, and face difficulties. I think our advice to our constituents is, we will help you, we will help practically every Singaporean families to own their first flat and buy within your budget, and then please keep it. If you want to upgrade, I mean, that is a good development, but make sure do your sums, and then you should not have a problem doing so.
The government remains open to pursuing public-private partnerships for large-scale projects such as the sports hub, despite the market risks. Acting Minister for Community Development, Youth and Sports, Chan Chun Sing, said doing so would allow them to tap the strengths of both the public and private sectors to bring about the best outcomes for the general public.
More important than just the infrastructural development, we were very concerned to make sure that we bring in the expertise to run the whole project in terms of the programming subsequent to the completion of the project. We will be quietly confident that once the project is completed in 2014, not only will the stadium and the infrastructure facilities be ready, more importantly, the rest of the programming in terms of bringing in events will also run concurrently to meet the schedule and the expectations that we have set for them.
The parliamentary debate on political salaries resumes tomorrow. Good night.